And we're back. Today we're going to be going over some of my I don't want to say discoveries, but somewhat of what I've learned with the Behringer Neutron. Some sort of pluses and minuses, and also that when I first started in computers, we had a saying called RTFN, which stands for Read the Fine Manual, and this has been a companion here of mine lately a little bit, because if you're just starting out with like the Volca keys, you have a sort of small array of options to choose from here, and you can kind of get through with button mashing a little bit and kind of tweak things and figure out what's going on pretty easily. This is at least twice as many knobs and twice as complicated. And some things you really wouldn't know unless you open up the manual. Yeah, let's go over some of those. I'm going to start with the oscillator. 2 oscillators. 3 would have been cooler, and well, you get that in the keys. But you obviously have way more options with the Neutron. The first is you have shapes. You have way more shapes. You start with a sine wave, triangle, ramp, square, pulse width. One of the reasons why I chose this was because I really wanted sine wave generation, which I know sounds really weird, but it's a lot because a lot of the synth sounds I like are really early synth sounds. I'm talking like Switched on Bach, Clockwork Orange soundtrack, things like that. So I really wanted to have that option, and I really do enjoy it in the mix. One of the things I do not like about this is the size and the looseness of the tuning knobs. They turn, all of the knobs have some resistance to them when they turn, except for the tuning knobs seem to have the least amount of resistance when you try and turn them, and that can be problematic, especially when you're choosing the full octave range. I'll switch everything over to that oscillator, and if you go straight to sine wave, oh, I got some noise in there too. I was playing around before. Really nice sounding. The problem with the tuning though is that this guy goes, and we have all octaves selected, it goes from inaudible really quick. I mean, we're not even at 9 yet, and it's gone. That's not the filtering it out, that's just, it's no longer audible. And if you bring it up, you can hear 10:30, 11 o'clock, it starts becoming audible, low grumble. By 3 o'clock, you really wouldn't want to hear that. And past that, at least I can't. And it might be my speaker system, it might be my ears, whatever. So the tuning with full octave range is super. I mean, you have that full everything in less than the full sweep of the knob, and that makes it really difficult to precisely tune. And there is a tuning feature that I read about in the manual. Haven't been able to figure that out very much yet. If you hold the range for that, it's supposed to blink certain shapes that are relative to the last MIDI note you played. I don't fully get it, full disclosure. I have to do it by ear, which sometimes is not the best. But even with that, you still have a great range of sounds and a great range of flexibility, especially with the pulse width modulation and the LFOs, and we'll get to that in just a little bit. And this is a setup that I like, kind of. I like to keep the sine wave, or you can actually mix between two different waveforms, the sine wave and the saw wave. I kind of like that, mixed with just the top octave, tuned all the way. Also, when you switch to this sort of mode, and I'll switch the mixer all the way to that oscillator, the tuner seems to have less effect. I'm just it's there, but it's not the less than subsonic to more than ultrasonic that the full octave range tuner is. I think I will be switching these knobs out for something smaller and put these on something that I'd more want to to touch, because getting to the mix knob, if you even bump this knob, even letting go of this knob, it can not be in tune. So this is kind of where I like it. Close. I can live with that. But you can see just how difficult the tuning is, especially when you're in all octave mode. Next, if we move to the filter has the three modes: low pass, band pass, and high pass. It's a 12 dB per octave filter, and it also has key trigger. I'm not sure if it's because it's 12 decibels per octave, or if it has something else to do with the filter design itself. But comparing this to some filter sweeps I've heard elsewhere on YouTube, it's just not that juicy. I don't know. Like, I feel that could be awesomer, but it's not. I don't know if these tuning or the filter issues are things that could be fixed in firmware updates. Maybe we can hope for better in the future. I'm sure would be cool if that happens. Now, moving across, the ADSR for envelope 1 controls the oscillators. That's pretty standard. I made the mistake of initially thinking ADSR 1 was for control oscillator 1, and ADSR 2, or envelope 2, is for oscillator 2. That is not the case. ADSR 2 actually connects to the envelope depth. There, you can hear it. this up, it cannot reset because you have the long release. So envelope 2 kind of goes over to the VCF. Envelope 1 goes for the oscillators. So if we turn this off, so you can do some fun stuff with that. The LFO, I think, is really awesome. It's got key sync, or it can just function independently. You can also, similar to the oscillators, you can mix between wave shapes. That's also, I think, a really cool feature. You can use the software to actually change which ones you're mixing with. So you can mix the sine wave with the square wave if you want, or ramp. I mean, you can do whatever you want. Unfortunately, I am running a laptop with Windows 10, and I have not been able to get my laptop to talk using the actual Neutron program to my Neutron. I have been able to upgrade the firmware, and I'll do another video on that in the future on how to do that, because it was a really weird process, just in case somebody out there is not running the latest firmware, or they come out with a new one and we all get to upgrade and enjoy new features. One of the things I will say I'll go back to the VCF a little bit. One of the things that confused me slightly was that if we go to the Volca Keys, the VCF is like an all the way closed. You have to open it somewhat in order to hear anything, really. So it's all the way closed, and it goes to all the way open. That is not how it works on the Neutron. It works more like on a guitar pedal, where center is kind of no bias, and then it biases towards the low end to the left, and towards the high end to the right. So to the right it cuts out more low end, to the left it cuts out more high end. That took me a minute to realize, and was initially a source of confusion for me. The other strange thing about this, and let's make sure all of our modulation is turned all the way down, and I didn't realize this until I started playing around with the patch bay a little bit, but if you, once again, read the fine manual, it's in multiple languages too, so you might have to flip through quite a few pages to get to yours, but you know, that way everybody gets to enjoy synthesis. But yeah, if you read the manual, you'll find out that by default the output of attenuator 2 is plugged into attenuator 1, and the input of attenuator 2 is plugged into pulse width. So if we get some of that going on, if you leave these open, because they're not just a tool that's not plugged into anything like the sample and hold. The sample and hold's not patched into anything by default. You can drive yourself crazy trying to figure out where that's coming from. And it's coming from the attenuators, because they will, by default, route the LFO to your pulse width. So that's some of... one other thing too. I do have a little delay stuck on here too. There we go, now it's totally dry. One other thing to be aware of is that in the overdrive, it functions a lot like a guitar pedal, in the sense that if you increase the drive, you will probably want to decrease the... If you increase the drive, you will probably want to decrease the level. So if you want to maintain a constant volume. So you're going to be sort of moving them in opposite directions. So if I'm playing, and I'm already at most of the drive, but if I want less drive, I'm going to end up having to turn the level up, which obviously you can't do that with one hand unless you turn up the bias, which will keep it going a little bit. Well, then you can. So let's try that one again. So if you do want to keep something going in like a live play sort of mode, you might have to pull up the VCA bias and then move those in opposite directions. And if you didn't catch that, that's what the VCA bias does, is it basically sustains indefinitely your last note. So that's kind of cool. Other than that, the portamento time is kind of cool. And the delay is also neat. You can get feedback and make the delay that's the mix. Yeah, you can make the delay self-oscillate. Don't know if that's a really good thing, but you can do it. Like the keys, I wish there was kind of a way that it could be synced with the clock. Have the delay time synced to a clock source, which there is a delay time input, so you may be able to do that. I haven't played with it yet, so that's something to explore a little bit more in the future. But that's what I've learned about the Neutron since I got it and have been playing with it. And I hope that watching this gives you some ideas, and if the attenuators were driving you nuts, I hope I explained why. Alright, that's all I got.